I'm actually recording my key presses too. I learned how to install a plugin for OBS so that you guys can see everything I'm doing, plus mouse clicks.
Mm.
So, look at me. I'm so productive when I'm bored. So yeah, we're just going to get to some more stuff in Sequencer. This is the project that I've been working with you guys for the semester. So every asset that it's already imported, you've seen me import it before, and just so it's in other videos. Everything here we kind of did from scratch together so far. And I have a scene that I was kind of messing around with yesterday and today, and let me go ahead and get out of here so we can do this component from scratch. I'm going to just touch on a couple of things when it comes to the virtual camera for those people who do have iPhones and iPads at home, and then how to kind of work with that data. And then we're going to just create Sequencer from scratch, and I think that's going to be really useful for a lot of people to get into that information. So let's just do a new level real quick. And we'll use this basic VR level. And then if we were going to start from scratch and do the virtual production plugin, it's actually not that complicated at all. Our plugins are located here under settings. And there's a little section down here for built-in plugins for virtual production. And you just want to turn on all three of these, which is the take recorder, the production utilities, and the camera. I've already done that, but if you were doing it for the first time, it would say restart, and right here, and then you could say restart, and it'll reopen the program, and those plugins will be turned on. And this level's a little dark for me. I'm gonna add in a little skylight, which did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now it's doing something. Two. There we go. Brighten up the scene a little bit. There we go. So here we are, and I'm going to bring in a couple animations. We've already screen recorded a lot when it comes to like redoing materials from Mixamo, applying animations from Mixamo and Motion Builder. So we're just going to work with the assets we already have, and more about setting up virtual camera together. So I have my skeletal meshes, and I have my two characters, which I apparently named Peter and Bobby. And to get an animation going, this looks like Peter is minimal when it comes to animations. Alright, so let's go to Bobby then. Alright, Bobby has a couple of animations there, running and crawling. Running. It's there. And now running is running in place. I want you to note that the term in place. Crawling is also in place. So if you were going to be bringing in stuff from Mixamo, for doing it in Sequencer, we don't want it to actually displace itself like we would do in mocap. Mixamo, we want to keep everything in place, and we want to animate the transform using keyframes in Sequencer, which I'll show you right now. So, of course, walking is the most basic thing that you use, and this is kind of how you set up games. Games don't use absolute positioning with motion capture. They're using the parameters on your joysticks or on your mouse and your keyboard to move things forward, and the animations are happening in place. So this walking, right now, this is more like mocap, right? This is doing absolute positioning. It's displacing itself. Mixamo has an option for a lot of these to do in place, and you want to download these for just doing Sequencer with Mixamo animations. What I could do is I'll download I'll just download this and see if it works with my character. Otherwise, if I wanted to put my character back into Mixamo, I'd go up to its T-pose. I'd go over to Actions, and I'd export it. I'll just throw my downloads for right now. All that's fine, I'm sure. And then, because it's already rigged, it should be pretty simple to get going. Let's just try it. Upload character for my downloads. And this is how you continue to work with your assets. Let's see if this works.
Todd, if you were working with multiple characters who are going to be doing similar actions, you still have to download the animations, like for each specific person. Like I can't just download for one as like the template and then add their animation to that skeleton in Unreal.
There's two answers to that. The first answer is if they have the exact identical names of bones, you can import the animation. But if they have different proportions, it'll look super funky because the bones are of different sizes. So it's an amazing way of making glitch art, as long as the bone names match. But if they have different bone names, it'll just error out and say, I can't import this. Or even worse, it could probably even maybe mess up the bones on the character that's already been installed. So it's always best to what we call export or bus the character back into Mixamo. And then I'm just downloading this one so we can see the displacement that happens with the walking cycle.
Okay.
So I have this one's walking. I'm going to show my folder. And I'm going to say walking. This is displacement. Alright, so now come back over to my animations folder, import walking displacement. And I don't need to bring in the mesh. I'm going to make sure that it's bringing it in on Bobby McFirepants. It's just going through all the keyframes for all the bones, and everything should work. Now I'm not cluttering up my content browser with a different mesh. Everything is being connected to each other with one skeletal mesh, which is something I definitely messed up when I first started. Let's see if this worked. He's walking in a different direction. That'll be fine for right now. Because we could fix that. In fact, that's its own hilarity. All right. First of all, let's just put the virtual production camera to bed. We're going to go through that process of setting that up real quick. So this project has had virtual camera plugin turned on, and now because of that, I should be able to access a couple of new tools. One of them is this VP Root Actor. And you put this in, and a lot of you guys already did this, but I'm just making sure it's recorded for us if we forget how to do it later on. And then let me move zoom to the other side. And so the VP Root Actor kind of is the center, the 000 of your virtual production toolkit. I'm going to move over here to the side, and then I'm going to throw in, I could throw in a camera, this VP camera, or I could throw in any camera. I'm going to do this VP camera because I'm going to use the virtual camera plugin. And then to make it easy on myself, if I select everything and right click, or actually I go up here to this folder icon, it's the very top right, I can move them all to a new folder, which makes it easier to find later on. I just call it VP Tools, and that way it's always at the top of my project. And then I can put my camera underneath my root actor. And then if I move my root actor, it moves my camera around. Right, and you can see me kind of framing things already right there. Coming back to the VP root actor, I need to tell it which one is the camera. And so now they're connected. Okay? And then, as Junon found out, if you're using the VP root actor and it's right here next to the camera, you can actually see this. You can actually see these arrows that gets in the way. So you can actually, there's a feature for toggling the visibility and it turns it off. You can also just say actor hidden in game, bring it back and say it's hidden in game. There's little details we figured out. And so to be able to enable, if I hit play in a new window, there's no virtual production plugin installed because we're not using the right game mode. We've only talked briefly about game modes, but essentially it's what if we change a game mode, it changes a lot of different settings for us, and the game mode is kind of built in now to the computer. You probably by default don't have world settings set up, so if I wanted to get my settings for my world, I'm going to go to my window and do world settings, and there it shows up, and it's asking for a game mode. I could say virtual camera game mode. Now, if I'm using the virtual camera, if I'm using this game mode for my entire project always, I don't want to set it up level by level. I can go up to project settings, and this maps and modes. I could just say everything can be virtual camera game mode. But for right now, because we're not going to use it that much more, because my iPhone is an iPhone 6 and it doesn't really run it very well, I'm going to just select it just for the world, this level right now. And now if I say play, you see it has all the plugins. It has the whole overlay that's working. And what's cool is I don't even have to use the phone. I could just hit record from here, and it does its thing. All right, let me hit exit. Did anyone notice that there was a ghost in the background? Look at this dude.
Oh my god.
Where did he come from?
So creepy.
There's a glitch in the Matrix. Uh-oh, that was crazy.
Oh.
The character exists in the project, but not in the level. I don't know if we should get into that. That's dangerous territory. All right.
Like the Rick route.
Yeah, the glitch in the Matrix for sure. And so I already know my IP address. It's already connected to my phone. So just to kind of tie up the loose ends, let me connect it real quick. You guys don't need to see my phone for this. I'm just hitting connect on the IP. And there we go. Looks good. My phone's way too small, but I can record from here. Checking them out. There's the ghost and the machine. There's the guy walking up with the... it's just a crazy world for sure. Alright, and then we'll hit stop. And I'll close the app on my phone. And then hit escape. Alright, great. One thing I actually should have mentioned and included in is that I also have this take recorder that I need to add the actors to. And if I look into the sequence I just recorded, I probably don't have this. I probably didn't record anything right. Let's see. Cinematics. Scene 101. Let's just try. Alright, so this is some other things I was recording earlier. So I made the mistake so you guys don't have to. I need to add in the actors I want to record, because it doesn't record everything. It just records the data for the actors I select. So let me unlock this and delete these. So the actors I want to include are all three of these. I do not have to select the camera. It will automatically add the camera. So bring these in. I added in the floor, which I didn't need to. And then you can add in other things to this to here as well, but we're gonna start with this for right now. Like if we were recording audio, it would let you record audio and stuff. Okay, and if you didn't have the take recorder open, that's again one of your windows, and that's one of the plugins we just enabled. So now we'll do it one more time. Open up the app. Connect. There we go. Hit record. And you see right there on the left, it added the camera automatically. Let's check out my freak. There he is. Cool. And stop. And then close out this window. I don't need any more. Now the whole app has a bunch of like review things, and you can show a bunch of stuff. But we're gonna get it out of the app for a second. Now I want to show the take I just did. So that's this one right here. Nope. Bizarre. Give me 1 second, guys. Boom. Sweet. Alright, let's call this a different scene. Let's call this scene 2. Take 2. Great. One more time. Connect. Hit record. Alright, and stop. Escape. And now everything's done correctly. We have our takes happening. Alright, so there's the stuff. You can see my camera moving around. And then if we look in this outliner, we see that there's 2 different versions of every single asset we recorded. This one with a lightning bolt on it means that it's spawning. It means if I closed out the sequencer, it would go away. And then my level would be back ready for me to record again. So if I come back to scene 2 and open it back up, those objects are there for me to preview. And if I wanted to export this as a video, I could just come over to my ones that aren't being spawned and just say that you guys are hidden in game. And if I want to export, which is right here, now right here, no audio, it'll go to this folder. Those extra ones wouldn't be there. So now it's rendering it to an AVI file. And so it's exporting it with this overlay on it as well. I figured this out earlier today. I'm going to cancel this one. To get rid of that, just take the game mode and say none. And now I can export. So both the actors are hidden and my camera overlay is hidden. So that kind of ties up the kind of workflow for using the virtual camera. And you know, I know a lot of people tried it, and there was a couple of glitches, like doubling up the characters and having the overlay. So now you guys know how to move forward with that. And this is really well documented on Unreal's documentation. I just kind of had to mess around with it. I could open the folder, and then this one was recorded to like. This is the other one. This is like 720p, and that's the settings in the exporter. So a cool thing real quick to look at is all these tracks are actually what are called subtracks. I'm going to open up this to editing. By default, it's always locked. And if I go down to, like, for instance, this camera, I can actually see all the keyframes for it, right? And then if I want to get back up, I go back up this way. Right, so all these are kind of little nested, encapsulated different little scenes. And one thing I was noticing is that they've really improved the curve editor. And if any of you who do animations and like After Effects and stuff, you might notice like there's this entire curve editor for that's very similar to what you might see in any other software, right? Like Maya or whatever. And for the camera, what was really cool is that if I select all the keyframes, there's a way to filter the data just like a motion builder. And I can say simplify, and it really simplifies the curves. Gets rid of a lot of keyframes, and it makes it a lot more smooth. So they really upped the game on the sequence editor to make it more like an After Effects kind of vibe. And the camera is a lot smoother that way. A lot less jitter. So that's a cool feature as well. So how do we do this from scratch? Let's go ahead and close the sequencer. And we don't need these two characters. I just move them off to the side. And we don't even need the game mode, right? We just have a non-game mode. And I'm going to create a sequencer from scratch. So cinematics right here at the top. I'm going to say make a level sequence. Call it whatever we want to. And now it has a location in space, but it doesn't really matter. It's just an icon letting you know it's in the scene. It has its own properties. The main property being that do you want it to play when we hit play? Will it play? Otherwise, it won't play until you trigger it. Like it's like a cutscene in a movie where you grab something and then it triggers the sequencer to play. But since we're doing kind of like a movie, we want it to always be playing. So autoplay. And then we have a bunch of different tracks we can add from scratch. I'm going to add in a camera first of all. So I'm going to add in a few cameras. First of all, there's two different ways to add in cameras or three different ways of doing it. The first is just to drag a camera in from over here in the modes. And there's a regular camera, which is very basic. And then there's like this cinematic camera called Cine Camera, which has a lot of features like focus and aperture and that kind of stuff. We've right now just do a regular camera. So obviously you can just drag in a camera. That's one way of doing it. And then you can see what the viewport looks like. But what I like to do is two different ways. Bring in that camera, and then you can right click on the object and say pilot. I'm now driving the camera around with my WASD keys and my mouse. I can line up my shot the way I want it. Get these guys framed up on thirds, right? He's on that third, he's on that third. And then I can eject it, and the camera's just waiting right where I left it. So that's one cool way of doing cameras. Another way to do it is just to normally just line up your frame, your shot, like you want to. And then you could say, create camera here. So there's two different ways of dropping in cameras. And they're both framed. And then I can bring it into the... Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. I can bring it into my sequencer. And then here's the camera. If I moved it, this would be all the transform information right down here for keyframes. But for right now, I'm going to keep them still. I'll animate in a second. This camera cuts track will let me cut between two different cameras. Let me bring in the second camera now. So both cameras are in there, but right now what's going to be showing in my scene is only this one camera. But if I add a little plus, I can add the next camera in. So now I've done cuts. Cool. So that, and then because I've already said, here I'm also going to make a folder for my sequencer stuff. This is one sequencer. If I go back to the settings, remember I said autoplay. And then I'm locking in the camera right here is where I'm saying lock it or unlock it to my viewport. And if I hit play in editor, I'll see the scene. Right? You saw the cut. Let me unlock it so I can navigate around. And now let's make a movie with our characters. Let's let me get this zoom bar out of the way. All right. So what I'm going to show you is how to animate the characters and blend between walking and running. Well, first of all, I'm going to kill this giant spider that's on my desk. Oh my goodness, where'd you go? Oh, don't be babies. Don't have babies. Oh no. That's terrifying. I don't know
Put
where
the
you
cat
went.
on him.
Yeah. I don't even know where it went. Oh, it's terrifying. Anyway, I'm sure it could be worse. All right.
Look bad.
So I have this one I brought in right here, and I'm going to use this as a reference for my one that's in place, so I know how to move its transform. So we'll put them like side by side. Is he the one who was walking? It might be a different walk, but it'll be fine. Oh, they were running. Oh well. So I'm gonna take both these folks and put it inside of Sequencer. There they are, and you can see that I have a tab for animations. I can add in that animation while there's running. Let's do this a different way. Alright, you walking displacement one at a time. Yes, it's that one that's in Bobby Animations. Okay. Add an animation. There we go. It's the one. If you can see the folder structure, it's the one. I have a bunch of takes now, so it's getting a little messy. You can see I have this animation in here, right? And that's the duration of the animation. Okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Then that works.
And if I drag it, I can actually make it loop. But it keeps on starting back at the beginning. This is kind of like getting to the root of the issue with doing things that have displacement on their own. But if I add in this guy to my scene, running, and I add in the animation, he's in place. And just like any of those software, we can keyframe this animation. So for location, this means add a new keyframe. And it has a little key right here. I can go to the end of the animation, and I see that I can use this as a reference for how fast he should go. Drag him, move him forward, and then add a keyframe. So now he's being displaced by keyframe. Now you're just using the other one as a reference to figure out the speed. Just move this stuff out of the way. Cool. So he runs there. And then I'm going to trim it. And then I can bring in another animation for the crawl. Another one for crawling. You see now that he's crawling. So what we could do though is if we take these two animations, we butt them up to each other. I'm holding down Control and I'm zooming in. You could see this little icon for crossfading. Do you see those little curves? you can actually adjust those curves, and it's blending skeletal animations. So at this point right here, it's halfway between a walk and halfway between a crawl. And then I can add another keyframe for how far I want him to crawl. And you can. There's a lot of settings here. One of the settings is auto keyframe. So if I just move him, it adds a keyframe for me. I don't have to hit the keyframe button. It's up to you guys whether or not you want to see whether you want auto keyframe or not. So now I'm gonna hit play. A little fast, and I want to go just adjust that one keyframe, move it over here, and now I'm on that keyframe, and let's move it back. It was a little fast. So that could be terrifying, right? This thing is like walking slowly and then it starts crawling at you. So I'm just dragging out and it's looping. And if I think it's a little fast, I can just make it take a little bit less time or take a little more time. So that's how you do animation blending. It's easier to blend Mixamo with Mixamo stuff. It's harder to blend mocap data with Mixamo. We have to do that in Motion Builder, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But it's a little bit more complicated having to do it in Maya Motion Builder. As I know, Sean, you wanted to get into that, and I definitely have tutorials for how to do more advanced. So the only thing I would take a look at is this curve editor again, and see that if I look at my location information for this data. Let's go to curve editor. X, Y. It's on a curve, which means that it starts off slow, goes faster, and then gets slower. That's the default behavior. I think it's in the settings. A lot of the animation, we just want to be linear, so that it doesn't change the speed. We just walk at a consistent speed. So going back to sequencer, so it's really cool that we're doing like editing like it's in Premiere, but it's 3D assets. And this is something they've really been working on. If we think that transition's a little bit too much, we can again drag it over and make the transition longer. Pretty good. So the only thing I'd want to add to that, well, I could add a couple things because I know, Ryan, you like the camera boom and the boom pole and the dolly track.
Yes, I do.
So let's do a camera animation. In the same way that we had, we animated the transform of these characters, these cameras that are already in here can also be keyframed. It can have a starting position and an ending position. So that, for instance, at first we're looking at this camera. And maybe we want it to frame it better because the actor's leaving the scene, right? So let's go to, that's this camera. That's right here because you can see it's loaded right there. I'm going to go to the beginning of my scene. I like to make sure my playhead is always stuck inside of the sequencer, and that's like a little setting for keep cursor inside of playback range. The playback range being the green go, and then this is the end of my sequence, which is the red right here. Now if I scrub, it doesn't go outside of that area because I don't want to accidentally put a keyframe somewhere in negative time. Alright, so now I'm going to drag it all the way back to the beginning, and this is my first, I'm going to do a rotation on this one. Do a keyframe there, and then right before we cut, I'm going to put another keyframe and frame it up a little better. So I'm going to eject it, look at it, and that's this one right here. I could say pilot, and I could frame it a little bit better. Like right there. And it should, yeah, it auto keyframed it for me. So now we have now eject it. Whenever you pilot, make sure you eject it when you're done. Lock it in place. And now I have a camera move. A pretty darn good looking camera move. Great. And there's just no more animation. That's why it's the other camera for doesn't show anything. It's just the animation doesn't go all the way to the end of the sequencer. Change. So, and he's looking at the wrong thing. So I'm going to go to the end of this camera. Let's go to this one. And that's camera 2. And let's go to the beginning of the track. Keyframe it on rotation, on transform, rotation, and then move it to the end. And let's pilot it. Set a keyframe for also location. And then at the end, we're going to frame it like this. It's keyframed it for me. I'm going to eject it. Let's lock and load in the viewport. So there's one camera move, and then this camera move goes the exact wrong way. But hey, that's more like a Kubrick kind of camera move. If I look in the curve editor for it, I can see that it's like going up to 137. I can also, it's rotating the wrong way. It doesn't know which way I was going to make it rotate. I could just easily bring it down. And now it's going to rotate the right way. There we go. Let's jump to rotation. There's a keyframe. That's camera 1. Camera 2 rotation. And then I just want to, there's 2 right next to each other and get rid of one of them. Oh, get rid of the other one. And you can select these and move these around. I think you've seen me do that. And then on that keyframe, I want to frame them up a little bit better. I can just like lower the setting real quick. Nope. There we go. Frame up a little bit better. And move that to the end. Cool. So there's me doing some camera moves. That was very manual. And what we like to do sometimes is do 2 different things they have built in to Unreal. Which one do you want me to do first, Ryan? The boom or the dolly?
I mean, camera always was first, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do the boom first. Or what's it called? It's called a crane? Okay.
Yeah. Wait, when you're saying boom, you're talking about a boom mic?
A boom pole. But yeah, I meant to say crane.
Alright, fine. Yeah. Jib? Yeah.
Jib, yeah, that's another term for this. So check this out, guys. This is hilarious. It's an actual camera crane like you would see on a film set.
I like that, and you know what I like? I like that the camera is three-dimensional in this program, unlike Unity, where it's like this weird 2D thing.
So I'm going to add in another camera to our scene, another Cine camera that has all the different settings, and I'm going to put it near the base. I'm going to move it up into this little folder, and I'm going to parent it to the crane, and then I'm going to zero the actor out. And now, if I go to the crane, it has its own controls for like moving up and down, and the camera's attached to it. And all the settings that are, if an object is in sequencer, everything that has a little plus means you can add a keyframe for it. So I'm adding keyframes over here in the timeline, but I can also add things to the timeline by here. So every single setting that can be keyframed over here, all these different things. So we could do a camera move. And if some of the stuff is getting kind of in the way, I can add some folders and say, like, here's a folder for animations. And then I could take both of these things to kind of clean it up a little bit and throw it into that folder. And then close it up. And so now I'm just looking at my cameras. And let's add in these two. Oops, totally missed. I'm adding in by dragging it, but you can also add it from here as well. So I'm going to do a new camera cut for the Cinema Camera 4 right here. And this will be my crane shot. And we'll do, we'll pin it so we can keep on seeing through it. And then I want to go to my camera setting, and I want my camera no. Where's follow? 1 second. Look at cinematic. 1 second. Okay, so I can look at. Okay. Can I do that in both? Alright. So I go to my camera settings. It actually has this kind of look at track. And I could say, actually, I want you to always look at this character, which is called running. So let's go back to our camera and always look at running. Enable. And then we want to say eyes up here, buddy. Raise it just a little bit. I went way too far. You want to frame it a little better.
I almost wish there was a way like you could like navigate this with like a joystick or something.
We could totally do that.
I mean that's kind of not far off from the set ones.
So let's go ahead and keyframe the rig, the crane. So coming back to getting rid of all the settings, keyframe the rig, the pitch and the yaw, and now it's added those two settings here. And then towards the end of the framing, we can just move it a little bit. I don't know why it doesn't see the actor, but it's framing the actor. So those are keyframed now. So if we lock everything in, first camera move, second camera move, and then the crane move. Very cool. Very cinematic. So I just want to check and make sure that was everything I want to talk about. Obviously, that there's a lot of features there that you can play around with. But that generally covers everything for this. And you can also combine your animated cameras with your virtual cameras. We did multi-camera. So I'm going to take just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, what do you mean by that? You're saying when you're saying we can combine our virtual cameras with, like, obviously the ones we shot with the iPad. Are you talking about by combination, cutting between them? Or are you talking about like,
yeah, you can cut between them. I didn't do virtual camera in this one, but if I go ahead and hit save all, save this work. I did do a virtual camera in this one. If I add in, open up the take I did for my content browser. I have cinematics, takes, and then today's date, and I did that scene 2. Like, this is the virtual camera stuff I did. Lock it in place. You can see that this is my handheld camera. It also has a camera cuts track, so I can take any of these cameras. This will just be stationary for right now, and add it in, and then I could do a camera cuts track with my virtual camera too.
Gotcha.
So handheld camera, lock it in the viewport. Handheld camera to stationary camera. Right. So we were talking about the Khrushchev effect, where you have like maybe a handheld on a person, then you do the insert shot of like the thing they're looking at, and then you cut back to the handheld shot of the person. So so they can be combined in the same way. And just like before, let me go ahead and save all again. And just like before, you can export this video. So cool. There's all the cameras doing their camera work. It's a little virtual set. So the only thing I wanted to add to this was audio, because audio is a huge component of all this stuff, and I just want to introduce the idea of like maybe adding in just like steps to the person walking from some resources. The audio, of course, you can record yourself. If you want to do a voiceover on your take recorder, you can. Right now, it's not letting me edit the take. Let's see. If I were to close sequencer, you can add in audio to this, but it probably won't be that good for right now. But I often bring in audio effects from a website called freesounds.org. Of course, I'm sure the library has online resources for NYU. To get like entire like audio catalogs. This is kind of like a user generated. This is like a YouTube of audio files. People upload audio files you can download, and everything's free on this. So I can do footsteps. And then you can kind of preview it. But can you guys hear my audio though? Okay, well, if you guys get my audio, then if I can't figure that out, I'm not going to teach audio. I might want to take a pause to figure out. Let's see.
You have to share the audio, your computer audio.
Okay.
It's part of the advanced settings on your screen sharing.
All right, can you hear it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was there. Yeah, it's just on more share computer sound. That's amazing. We're so good. All right, so there's just tons of these, and some of the quality will be bad, some of the quality will be good. You just kind of mess around with it, or you can record your own self. So I'm logged in. You have to make a free account, and then you can download these things. This one gets 4.5 stars, and 9,000 people have downloaded it. So we're a good company. There's a bunch of audio editing tools. If you want something free, there is Audacity. It's a free audio editor, but because I have the Adobe Suite, I'm just going to use Adobe Audition. I'll add this to Slack. And then we'll just load it in the audio file real quick. It's not done. There we go. So I don't know if anyone here does audio editing and stuff, but there's some good general good practices to use. First of all, even though sound has like its own physics inside of the game engine. Like if you get closer to a sound and get further away, it has attenuation. If something is supposed to be, what I like to do first is kind of like the idea of what's the difference between color grading and color correcting. I like to make sure all my assets are graded first. They're all perfectly the way they should be normally, and then if I want to add any like style to them, I add it inside the engine. But first, I always use an audio editor to make things are always good, good quality assets first. And for instance, this audio is a little bit too quiet, and so I'd want to bring up the audio levels in here. If I want to make audio sound like it's far away, I'd actually make it a normal audio file and make it far away inside of the game engine.
So you would keep it like the same. You would basically even out the levels, so all audio file levels going into the game engine are around the same decibel system.
Yeah, they're all mastered the same way, and that's just a good practice, because if you want to use the audio later on, you might have a different use case for it. But you want everything to be kind of like, you want to have all your assets being perfect. It's the same way if you got some sort of audio library, they would have everything mastered the same way. Even if it was distant airplane, it would just sound like it had a low pass filter on it. It would still be the same volume. So what I like about Audition is that it has a bunch of these favorites that do a lot of the stuff for you. And what I'm going to do to bring up the audio is I'm going to say normalize to like -3 decibels. A couple of these are a little bit louder than the other ones, so maybe I'll make it normalized to -1 decibels. And so now everything is kind of... So now we have a couple of steps, and what I want to make these discrete steps, because I want to procedurally do this audio. So I'm just going to kind of copy, and I think this is copy to new. So there's one step. Come back. I said come back, and just do another one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I said copy to new. What's the shortcut for that? Alt-Shift-C. Copy to new. And I'm just going to grab 4 of these for right now. There you go. And the sound quality might be really bad, but the concept is the same. All right. And then all these are also stereo. You want audio inside of a game engine to be mono, so it comes from a single source. Stereo would make it seem like it's in your ears, and like it's a soundtrack. But mono means it can actually have a location in space. So there's another one of these that is convert to mono, or I can do it as I export it all. All right, so now it's It's a mono file. It would have been smarter for me to do it to the master track first, but it can't hurt. Convert to mono. And convert to mono. Great, and let's just save these all. In general, the settings should be this 44.1 K hertz is fine. That's CD quality. You can also do 48, which is DVD quality. You really won't be able to tell anything better than that. So no need to make any bigger file sizes. They're mono, which is great. And then again, 32-bit makes files too big. We can make it 16-bit, and it works better with the engine. And then in my downloads, I'm just going to call this step. And they're WAV files. I think that there's a lot more support for different file types now. So this would be step 3, also 16-bit. Step 2. $16-bit. And last one. And then make that 60-bit. Alright, let's get back to the engine. Back to Unreal. I'm going to make a new folder for audio. And then bring them in. There's my steps. No problem. There they are. And you can see I didn't make step 1 it's stereo because you can see 2 different tracks there. So we'll convert this one to mono. I'll save it again. And then go back to Unreal Engine and say re-import. And it updated itself. That's the correct workflow for assets. It's just to re-import them. And then I hit play, and I can hear them. Great. But what I want to do is I want to procedurally use audio so that I can make these steps randomly select themselves to add a little bit more nature. Otherwise, if we use the same 4 audio clips, we'll be able to tell that it's the same 4. So audio actually has its own kind of blueprint system, and this is a little bit of programming I wanted to add to the class, is that we can do a blueprint for audio. And I can't really see here. There you go. It's called a cue. Footsteps. And so there's a whole node-based thing for footsteps. For sound as well. And I'm just going to take all of these audio tracks and throw it in here. And then there's not many things you can do with it, but what I want to do is I want to randomly select which one it is. And then I want to modulate it so that it's slightly higher and lower every time I do it. So let's choose a random one each time. Add 2 more. So random doesn't really have any settings, but modulate means that sometimes it can lower the pitch by 0.95% or up 1.05, and then it can change the volume as well. So this adds a little bit more procedural to it, and then as I play it, it's going to randomly choose one and then modulate each time. So I can make 4 footsteps sound like a whole bunch of footsteps that don't repeat. Select that, come over to our animation. Let us pause. And as I drag the frame, I can wait for the first step, which is right there. there. And I can right click and say add in audio, play sound. And if I click on that step, it added in step 1. Let's highlight step 2. And go to my animation, drag forward for the next step. And then play sound. It added in step 2. And then a little further forward. Oops. Let's add in step 3. And there's tons of stuff we could do. We can add in particle effects. So it would be like, I can add a dust trail. Right. And then, so now if we hit play, and I totally made a mistake. Each one should actually just be the footstep cue. Let's fix that real quick. And I select all of them with control. It won't let me do that, so one at a time. And do footstep cue. Footsteps. 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 No footsteps. So now it has that little bit of code that helps it out. So now if we hit play, it was playing. The problem is it only takes a couple of steps before it starts crawling. I mean, I don't have any sounds for crawling. But anyway, it's working. Now, I'm sure you guys can hear it. It's in both ears. It's not attenuated. That's a setting that you would do normally if you add in a sound file and you say override attenuation. You can see there's these two circles. This circle is when it's loudest, and then this outer circle is when you can't hear it anymore. So that's kind of built into the engine. I already kind of know my default settings that I like to use for it, which is normally there's a little window there. Let's see. Here, the attenuation. You can choose different kinds of fall off and stuff. And you can say, oh, I want it to only be 100% if you're right next to it. And then, the distance is, you can't hear it across the room. My default is like, I think 100 and 400 for like a VR piece where you're pretty much in the space with it. But I can't add that setting to this character. I have to make a default. I have to make my own modulation file. So sound attenuation. That would be called indoor. You can use these across all your sounds. So you can only make it once and use it over and over again. So 100 and 400 are my settings. And I can add it to all the audio files in the scene without having to manually change the details, which is a cool feature. So let's go into our queue, add in a attenuation node. And then say override attenuation and use our indoor sound. Or actually, we don't want to override. We are using indoor. So now all of them should be attenuated. So if I say simulate, everything disappeared. If I say play, if I come over to here, it's not stereo panning right now, but it should be stereo panning now. Cool. So those are all the things I want to talk about today. Audio I kind of threw in at the last minute just so we could start talking about that. It's not really necessary for what you turn in next week. It's just starting to discuss different components of the game engine that we're going to address. And then when we start back next week, we can start upgrade. Everyone can upgrade to 424. So the newer engine. So if you haven't already installed 424, just go to the Unreal Launcher and add the new engine version, and we'll start using it next week or soon after, because it has a lot of the features we want to use for multi-user editing. I will be online on Zoom for the next 20 or 30 minutes, and if you guys want to start working on stuff, I'll start compressing the videos and getting those up to Slack, and I'm just here for questions, and we can answer them together so that we're still utilizing class time. All right, so I'm going to stop this right now.